Look straight up. You are standing in the shadow of a man-made mountain, the Titanic. It is a sheer vertical cliff of black riveted steel, rising so impossibly high that it completely blocks the morning sun from reaching the wet cobblestones of the dock. Out of the massive hull rise 4 towering buff-coloured smokestacks, leaning slightly backward as if the machine is already moving. It is April 9th, 1912. You are standing in the bustling, smoke-choked port of Southampton on the southern coast of England. We are completely discarding the cinematic myths and the hindsight of tragedy. Before it became the most famous shipwreck in history, this vessel was simply the absolute, unquestionable pinnacle of human engineering. It was a product of the Edwardian era, a time when the British Empire spanned the globe, when the Industrial Revolution had convinced humanity that technology could conquer nature itself. Using advanced AI trained on original White Star Line logistics ledgers, local Southampton municipal records, and the engineering blueprints of the Harland and Wolff shipyard, we have meticulously reconstructed the final 24 hours before the maiden voyage. We are going to strip away the romance and look at the staggering, gritty, high-stakes logistics of launching a Leviathan. Imagine navigating the bitter aftermath of a national labour strike, organising enough food to feed a small city, and managing the extreme, unbending class divide of 1912 Britain. This is what it actually took to launch the RMS Titanic. The day begins at 5 a.m. The air over Southampton is bitterly cold, carrying the sharp, salty tang of the English Channel mixed heavily with the inescapable, suffocating smell of burning coal. You are a senior victualling officer for the White Star Line. You don't sleep in a luxury suite. You wake up in a modest brick terraced house in the working class districts of the city. Southampton is not a quiet seaside resort. It is a roaring industrial company town. Almost every single family here has a father, a brother, or a son whose livelihood is entirely dependent on the sea. You put on a heavy wool suit and a bowler hat, step out into the freezing pre-dawn fog, and walk toward the massive iron gates of Berth 44, the White Star Dock. As you approach the gates, you are met with a scene of absolute, desperate chaos. Britain has just emerged from the national coal strike of 1912, the largest labour strike in the history of the country. For a month, over 1 million miners walked off the job, completely paralysing the empire. The strike ended just 3 days ago, but the economic damage is devastating. Thousands of men are out of work. Hundreds of them are crowded against the iron gates of the dock this morning, holding their union cards in the freezing air, desperately shouting and begging for a job on the new ship. They want to join the Black Gang, the army of stokers, firemen and trimmers who work in the hellish 120-degree heat of the boiler rooms, shoveling hundreds of tons of coal a day into the roaring furnaces. It is brutal, life-shortening work, but it pays a steady wage, and these men have starving families. You watch as the ship's engineering officers ruthlessly pick the strongest men from the desperate crowd, handing them employment slips. The ship is an economic lifeline for this entire city. By 8 a.m., you are standing on the bustling, deafening docks alongside the massive ship. The logistical operation happening right now is staggering. The Titanic is not just a passenger ship, it is a floating luxury hotel that must be entirely self-sufficient in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean for a week. You hold a leather-bound ledger, checking off the cargo as massive wooden crates are hoisted by steam cranes and lowered deep into the cargo holds. The numbers are difficult to comprehend. You oversee the loading of 75,000 pounds of fresh meat, 11,000 pounds of fresh fish, 40,000 eggs, and 40 tons of potatoes. But it is the luxury items that reveal the absolute, unapologetic wealth of the era. You inspect crates holding 15,000 bottles of ale, 1,000 bottles of the finest French champagne, and 800 bundles of fresh hothouse asparagus. You watch as local deliverymen carefully load 8,000 premium cigars. This single ship consumes more high-end resources in 1 week than most small English towns consume in a year. Because of the coal strike, The White Star Line was terrified they wouldn't have enough fuel to make the crossing. You watch as a small army of men literally shovel coal out of the bunkers of other cancelled ships like the Oceanic and the Majestic and transfer it into the belly of the Titanic just to ensure she can sail. The corporate pressure to launch on time is an invisible, crushing weight on the docks. By 1 p.m, the loading pauses for the midday meal. You leave the freezing docks and walk down Oxford Street, the bustling commercial heart of the port. You enter the Grapes, a legendary local pub heavily frequented by sailors, quartermasters, and the Black Gang. The air inside is thick with pipe smoke and the smell of roasted malt. The pub is packed wall to wall. Men are drinking pints of bitter, laughing and trading stories of the sea. The atmosphere is electric with pride. The men in this room are not just going to work, they are crewing the largest moving object ever built by human hands. They boast about the sheer size of the reciprocating engines and the luxurious quarters. But there is also the inherent superstitious nature of the sailor. You hear an old quartermaster grumbling over his pint. The ship was never formally christened. The White Star Line doesn't believe in the tradition of smashing a champagne bottle on the bow. They simply release the ships into the water. To a seasoned 19th century sailor, breaking tradition is a bad omen. You brush it off. The engineers have assured everyone that the watertight compartments make the ship practically unsinkable. The confidence of the Edwardian era leaves absolutely no room for doubt. By 4 p.m, you return to the ship and step aboard for a final interior inspection. The moment you step through the massive gangway doors, the smell of the port completely vanishes. The interior of the Titanic does not smell like a ship. It smells of freshly cut mahogany, drying varnish, brand new linoleum, and the crisp, clean scent of unwashed cotton linens. You walk through the first-class dining saloon on D-deck. It is a masterpiece of Jacobean design, spanning the entire 92-foot width of the ship. The floor is covered in perfectly laid, intricately patterned linoleum tiles. The tables are being set by stewards in crisp white jackets. The crystal glasses gleam under the electric lights. Electricity is still a profound luxury in 1912, but this ship has thousands of incandescent bulbs powered by massive steam-driven dynamos. It is a glowing palace. You climb the grand staircase, running your hand along the flawless, polished oak banisters. At the top, you pass Captain Maurice Clark, the stern, meticulous inspector from the British Board of Trade. He is inspecting the lifeboats on the boat deck. You watch as he signs the clearance papers. By the outdated maritime laws of 1912, which calculate lifeboat requirements based on the tonnage of a ship rather than its passenger capacity, the Titanic is only legally required to carry 16 lifeboats. The White Star Line has actually exceeded the law by providing 20. They believe the ship itself is the ultimate lifeboat. To clutter the beautiful, sweeping promenade decks with more wooden boats would ruin the view for the first-class passengers. The hubris is total, institutional, and entirely legal. By 8 p.m, the sun has set over Southampton, and the city transitions into a night of intense anticipation. You walk toward the Southwestern Hotel, an imposing, highly ornate brick building situated right next to the railway terminus. This is where the absolute elite of the world are spending their final night ashore. You walk through the grand lobby. The air smells of expensive French perfume and fine cigars. You see Thomas Andrews, the brilliant, humble managing director of Harland and Wolff, the man who actually designed the ship. He is sitting quietly in a leather chair, poring over complex blueprints, making meticulous notes on how to improve the crew's quarters. Not far from him is J. Bruce Ismay, the wealthy, aristocratic chairman of the White Star Line, toasting the upcoming voyage with a glass of champagne. The disconnect between this opulent, velvet-draped lobby and the freezing, desperate crowds at the dock gates that morning is the defining characteristic of the British Empire. It is a society of absolute, unbending hierarchy. Everyone has their assigned place, from the stokers in the dark belly of the ship to the millionaires dining in the hotel, and everyone believes this perfectly ordered system will last forever. The morning of April 10th arrives. Departure day. By 8 a.m., the docks are a roaring, highly organized frenzy. The White Star Dock is swarming with thousands of people. You stand near the gangways, coordinating the boarding process. At 9:30 a.m., the first of the special boat trains arrives directly onto the dockside from London Waterloo. The platform is flooded with a breathtaking cross-section of humanity. You see first-class passengers, American industrial tycoons, British lords, and silent film stars, followed by small armies of porters carrying massive steamer trunks. But you also see the third-class passengers, steerage. They are Irish, Swedish, Lebanese, and Syrian immigrants. They are carrying everything they own in simple woven bags or cheap wicker suitcases. For them, this is not a luxury vacation. This ship represents a profound, terrifying one-way ticket to a new life in America. They look up at the towering black hull of the ship with absolute awe. To a farmer from rural Ireland, this machine is incomprehensible. You check their health inspection cards, a strict requirement by the American immigration authorities to prevent the spread of diseases like trachoma, and wave them up the steep wooden gangways. By 11:30 a.m., the boarding is complete. A deep, earth-shaking blast from the ship's massive steam whistles echoes across the entire city of Southampton. It is a sound so loud you feel it vibrate in your ribs. The gangways are pulled away. The heavy mooring ropes are cast off from the iron bollards on the dock. You stand on the edge of the pier, watching the water churn. Deep inside the hull, the telegraphs ring down to the engine room. The massive 3-story tall reciprocating engines engage. Slowly, impossibly, the colossal mountain of steel begins to move forward. But immediately, the sheer, terrifying physics of the ship assert themselves. The Titanic is so massive and displacing so much water in the narrow channel that it creates a violent, underwater suction. As it passes the smaller docked passenger liner SS City of New York, the immense hydrodynamic pull actually snaps the heavy mooring lines of the smaller ship like they are made of twine. You watch in horror as the stern of the City of New York swings out, caught in the suction, drifting directly toward the massive spinning bronze propellers of the Titanic. It is a terrifying moment. Captain Edward Smith reacts instantly, ordering the port engine to reverse, pushing the water back against the smaller ship. The City of New York misses the hull of the Titanic by a mere 4 feet. A massive disaster is averted by a hair's breadth. The crowds on the docks, initially terrified, burst into relieved applause. The crew quickly secures the smaller ship, and the Titanic resumes its slow, majestic glide down Southampton water. You stand on the docks, the smell of coal smoke hanging heavy in the afternoon air. The band is playing on the deck, the passengers are waving from the railings, and the largest moving object in human history shrinks slowly into the horizon. It is a moment of absolute, pure triumph. It is the golden afternoon of the Edwardian age. They are sailing into a world that feels perfectly ordered, completely safe, and utterly conquered by human intellect. They do not know what awaits them in the freezing, starless void of the North Atlantic. They do not know that the ice is already drifting into the shipping lanes. They only know the pride of the moment. You turn around, pack your ledgers into your leather bag, and walk back into the soot-stained streets of the city, preparing for the next ship to arrive. This video is brought to you by the Paladin Learn History app. Scan the QR code to learn more history.